All right, guys. Good evening, everyone. Evening. If you are just joining us for the first time, welcome to Blockchain official YouTube channel. And today we'll be starting our the Web3 classes officially. Although we did class that was last week Sunday. Then we had technical issues last week. But for the sake of the new persons who joined the community, we're going to start over again this time with React. And if this is your first time, I would advise you get your laptop ready so you could possibly code along, as that would help you with assimilation better. But if you can't code along at the moment, then do not fret, since this is a live stream on YouTube, so you would always find it on our YouTube channel even after we are done. All right, guys. So good evening once again. And in the next 1 minute, we'll be kicking off. So please reach out to other persons on the Web3 community, right? Reach out to more persons. Let's get more persons into the the class tonight. Let's get more persons into the class tonight. So just send a message to at least one or two persons and let's get more persons into the class. All right, so I'll assume we have as much persons as we need. And for the few persons who are not yet in the call, they'll probably check out the recording of the class later on our YouTube channel. Right, so good evening once again. And like I said earlier, today we'll be looking at React.js. We're going to be looking at React.js. We're going to be trying to understand React is, and why is really necessary for you to learn React.js as a developer looking to dive into Web3. We're going to be looking at all that. So we're going to be starting from defining the pure concept. That's what React.js. So I'll be sharing my screen in a moment, and we'll just probably go through the official React web page. So let me just try sharing my screen. All right, guys, can you see my screen? I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you just let me know in the live chat? Can you just probably can you just probably signify that you can actually see my screen? Right, I'm still not getting any responses yet. All right. Ayomide John says he can see it, then we could actually proceed. Right. So some of the things I'm going to be doing today, we already did in our last class. The last class was the one we held like 2 weeks ago, right? So like I said earlier, as a developer looking to dive into Web3 development, right? The smart contract development and the rest, it's necessary to understand the way Web2 works, right? Understand, we started in the community learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then we said it's also necessary to learn React, as React helps us build better user interfaces and much more quicker than writing everything from scratch. So what exactly is React.js, right? What's this React we're talking about? So as you can see, according to the main React web page, so React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces So basically, React provides you with different tools that enables you build user interfaces better, and should I say in a more organized manner. So when you come down, you can see some advantages React gives you as a developer, right? As a front end developer, it's React is declarative. So by declarative means that React makes it painless to create interactive UIs. So it says you can design simple views for each state in your application, and React will efficiently update and render just the right components when your data changes. So probably if you've not heard that before, the should I say React sites or React pages are something we call a single what we call single paged, right? Single paged applications. So React enables you design UIs in such a way that with a single UI, with a single view, right, you could change the thing a user sees by probably like updating the components when like changes are made to the data or something. So declarative views, like they say, make your code more predictable and easier to debug. Also, React comes with a means to like create it comes with this way where you can create whereby you can create what we call components. So React is components based. You can build encapsulated components that manage their own state. Then you can actually compose them to make complex UI. So when we start building applications with React, you understand what I mean better. So for example, as you can see this web page, right, we can decide, okay, this first part which says try out a preview of the next new React docs, we can build this as a separate component. We can build this part too, that's the navbar, right? We can build the navbar as a separate component. We can also decide to build this heading image or header image you see here as a separate component, right? And the buttons and all, you can this button too can be a separate component. And the beauty of this component is they give you a means to create reusable units, right? Reusable components. So if this gets started is like a component I've created using React, right? I can decide to probably just add that component somewhere here, and it will apply here without necessarily rewriting the codes. So you can see in that way it enables you to write to minimize writing redundant or repetitive codes, right? So you just design the component once and you can reuse it in multiple places. You probably don't understand this until we probably start building out applications. So it says learn once, write anywhere. So we don't make assumptions about the rest of the technology stack. So you can develop new features in React that writing existing code. All right. So there's this thing in React what we call a GSX, and it's something we are going to also look at before we dive into creating React components. Or you know what, before we do that, right, we're going to learn how to like install and set up React. We're going to learn how to install. So as you can see, we're already streaming. So if you miss the class, you could probably come back and access it from our YouTube channel. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and yeah. So all right, please. It's recorded. All right, yeah, Alexander. I can see Alexander complaining about the video quality. You could work on that. You could work on that. Just click on the settings on your screen, right, and choose a higher video quality. Yeah. All right. So to get started installing React, right, we all have a terminal. So just head into your terminal. So I believe we understand what a terminal is. Most of us started did our GitHub classes, right? So you understand what the terminal is. You're just going to head to the terminal, and we're going to write the command npx create React app, and we're going to specify the name of our React app. Let's call it um let's just call it BlockchainUNN. All right. So you can see the command npx create React BlockchainUNN. But before you move on to creating doing this, right, you need to make sure you have Node.js installed. Just simply head to Node.js website and ensure to get Node.js installed. So you head over here, you can see the 18.13 is already available, I would advise you to get this one, the one which is recommended for most users. And you don't need to worry about the OS. It's just Node.js. Node.js installed, since we'll be using Node.js a lot. You can't particularly run it without Node.js, right? So we're just going to run the command npx create react app blockchain UNN, and then we're going to click enter. So when we do this, it's going to create a new React app, and as you can see, this is going to take some time. It says this might take a couple of minutes, plus my internet connection is not the best at the moment, so we'll probably have to wait for a few minutes to get this set up. Going to wait for a few minutes to get it set up. All right. So, among the things we are going to be looking at today, we're going to be looking at I didn't really get that ready. Like I said, this was not, I was not the one who was supposed to handle this class, right? But the instructor, that's Romeo, the one who taught the previous classes, right? He fell sick, and so I had to just substitute for him. And yeah, by hopefully by God's grace, he should be able to join us. He should regain his health and be able to join us by next week. We'll be having another class on Sunday, so please don't miss out on that. And I can see we don't have much persons in the meeting well yet, so please reach out to other persons in the community. Reach out to other persons on the group chat. Let's get more persons into the call. All right, this will take pretty much some while because my internet connection is currently not the best. It's a little too slow. All right. So while wait for that to install, right, we're just going to head into React docs, right, and we're going to check out a few things. So let's check learn React. All right. So we're just going to start with our guide's main concepts. Okay. So I always advise anyone learning stuff, right, to always try to use the docs. Docs are always very helpful. I know there are tons of YouTube tutorials available to learn React, and I don't discourage YouTube tutorials at all. But I also recommend that probably after using YouTube tutorial for a while, you should always go back to check the docs, because even the guys who teach you on YouTube, right, they learned it from the documentation. So learning from the documentation is something that cannot be overemphasized. So always try to make that a habit. Like I said earlier, I wasn't able to prepare like a material, so we're just going to use guide ourselves using the docs, right? So yeah, so while we wait for this to get installed, this would probably take a lot of time. But while we'll get that installed, right, let's just go back and go through the docs, right? So as you can see here, we have a very small React example. So as you can see, this looks like JavaScript, right? But you would see something very strange inside the brackets here. You see that we are actually using HTML inside JavaScript. And by the time we get to GSX, right, I would explain how that is possible. So as you can see here, we have a simple React example. It says constant room equals React DOM create root, which gets the element by ID. I would also explain this when we get to the when we finally install, create a new React application, right? And we take it out through like the default components or the default folders and files that comes with installing and setting up a new React application. All right. So if you try running this React code right on the browser, you're going to get a heading that says "Hello World" on the page. So you could try that where after installing your React application, you're going to get a heading that says "Hello World." All right. So The first thing we are going to start from is we're going to start from GSX, because GSX is like the backbone of React, something you must understand in order to say you've understood React. You must properly understand how GSX work. So as you can see here, we have this one line of code. This is neither a string, neither is it HTML, but it is what we call GSX. Now, as you can see, constant element is probably how you declare a variable in JavaScript, right? But then you can now see H1, which is normally what we would do in HTML, right? So JSX exactly is I think it stands for JavaScript XML. I'm not sure. Let me check. Full name JSX, or not JSZ, JSX. It stands for JavaScript XML. Yeah, I'm correct. So it allows us write HTML in React. Allows us to write HTML in React. So as you can see, it's called JSX and it's a syntax extension to JavaScript. Now, it is normally recommended to use it with React to describe what the UI should look like. So JSX is just like a template language. You can also decide to write React without JSX. I think that is possible. You can also do that. But then why would you even want to do that? So JSX basically enables us to write HTML inside React. While we go further, you know that, so you would come to begin to understand all the beauty of React, right? Is you can with React you can write you're writing a HTML inside your JavaScript, and you can, with the help of, let's say, something like styled components, you can also without necessarily having to go through the code. See that as we go forward, hopefully, we just have like, I think 4 weeks, right, to study React, but by God's grace, we'll definitely touch on styled components before the class ends, right? So why GSX, right? So it says React embraces the fact that rendering logic is inherently coupled with other UI logic. So when you want to render a UI, that's a user interface, right? There are different other things you would probably want to do, like handling events, changing states, and a whole lot of other things. So instead of artificially separating technologies, probably how you do when you're writing HTML, you put your HTML code one place, put your CSS code another place, put your JavaScript logic in a separate file. React is more concerned with coupling units called components. So I talked about components when we started, right? How you can create reusable components in React. Now, some of these things will probably not would sound very foreign, and you don't need to bother about that. But we are going to look into that soon. So, all right. So, yeah. So React doesn't require using GSX, right? But most people find it helpful. Like I said earlier, you can write React without GSX. I think that's possible. GSX is more like a template engine. So you can decide to write React without GSX. That's still possible. But then why would you? So all right. So there's also the since GSX basically allows you write HTML in JavaScript, you can also embed expressions in your GSX. So, for example, as we can see here, we have a JavaScript code here in which we declare a name to be Josh Perez, right? Now, we can also create an element where we add this JavaScript code. So, as you can see here, please minute. Apologize for that. Okay. Yes, kindly check your network. Your voice was breaking at some point. Sorry, guys. Can you hear me now? Like, can you hear me clearly? Before we proceed, I need to be sure you can hear me. I'm sorry about that. I forgot to turn on Do Not Disturb on my phone, so I got a call while doing the session, which I apologize for. So, guys, can you hear me? If you can hear me, can you just let me know in the chat? Okay, guys, I'm not seeing any response. I'm not seeing any reply. Can you guys hear me? Still no response yet. Let me confirm my internet is still working properly. Probably just reload this page. Yeah, I think my internet works. So I have no idea why I'm getting no reply though. But we are just going to move on. We're just going to move on. All right. So we're looking at embedding expressions in JSX, right? And I said you could embed expressions inside JSX. For example, we're looking at this constant name is equals to Josh Perez. So we declare a variable name and we store the Josh Perez and we store Josh Perez in that variable, right? Now we can see here that inside our JSX, now this is our JSX, right? We can embed this as this expression using a curly bracelet. So as you can see here, we create a curly bracelet. We create a curly bracelet. This is how you tell GSX that this is not an ordinary string or something, that this is an expression, right? And you put it in there. So when you probably when you call the result of these elements, right, you are going to get returned this name variable. That's the content of this name variable rather than probably getting returned hello name or something. So you're going to get returned the content of this name variable. All right, let me see if there's any chance. Okay, yeah, all right. Then you can also embed functions in JSX using curly bracelets too. As you can see in this example, I preferred our React application. It had issues installing due to the call which came in earlier. It it tampered with our network. Please allow me to explain what exactly is being done here. So all right, so that tampered with our network, so we might have to just start again. Very sorry about that. We probably need to just restart that again. All right, so while we just wait for that to install, I'll probably just go through a basic React application using um, probably one of the React applications I've created in the past, because that's going to take some time to get installed. Right, so just moving forward, right, I said we could embed functions in JSX. And though we're going to practice most of these, I just need that this to get installed, and we'll definitely practice most of all these, right? So, well, for now, let's just go through them to understand or explain what exactly is being done here. So, as you can see here, we have a function called format name, which takes in a user and then formats the name, returns the user's first name, and adds a space and returns the user's last name. So, as you can see here, the user argument which is being submitted, right, is an object. So, the object is Harper Perez, and as you can see here, we are rendering an element using by calling this function. So basically, when you call hello format name user, right, the browser, this is embedding an expression now in JSX. As you can see, we are using the curly bracelets. So the browser is going to call format name, passing in that user argument. It's going to call this function, and whatever is returned by this function, right, would be returned also by this element. So in here, what we're going to expect when we run this on the browser, right, is hello Harper Perez. That's what we're going to expect. Hello Harper Perez. And well, you could try that on CodePen, but then I would just prefer us doing that with ourselves, right? I'm just going to prefer us doing that by ourselves. So as you can see, we can split JSX over multiple lines for readability while it isn't required. When doing this, we also recommend wrapping it in parentheses to avoid the pitfalls. Okay, let's just forget about that. Okay, JSX is an expression too. So it says after compilation, JSX expressions become regular JavaScript function calls and evaluate to JavaScript objects. So basically, what this is saying is each time you compile your React script, right, JSX expressions are compiled down to regular JavaScript functions. So what this means, the implication of this is that you can actually use JSX inside your if statements and your for loops. So as you can see here, inside this if statement in our function, we get to use a JSX. So we are returning h1 hello. This is a JSX. Now this is another expression. But as you can see, we are using this inside a JavaScript expression. So there's a function get greeting, and we are returning a JSX inside this function. Now this is possible, and this is a possibility, right? Because GSX gets compiled to JavaScript, as in compiled gets compiled to regular JavaScript. All right. So okay, specifying attributes, we can skip that for now. Specifying children, we are going to look at this later. All right. So there's one thing I really need us to look at, right? So by God's grace, we are going to at least touch on components. Basically, if you were in the last class, some of these things I'm doing are probably a repeat of what the instructor did. But we're definitely going to look at components and props. We're going to look at playing around with components. What to do that? All right. So our application is our application has been installed, right? So we're just going to move into the blockchain UNN repo. I'm going to see into blockchain UNN. All right. And then I'm just going to open this in my code editor. Okay, so I'm the only person in the studio currently, so I just need to go back from time to time to ensure that I have not lost you guys. As I can see here, my internet connection is still on, and probably you guys are still following. So we're just going to go back to our VS Code, and now this is the folders and the files that comes with a React boilerplate, right? So after initializing the creating a React application, right? These are the folders and the files that come with it. So firstly, we have the node modules file folder. So this node modules folder is what contains our node packages, right? Our modules are like packages you could probably install using npm to probably carry out some specific functions. For example, one beautiful thing about JavaScript React, right, is you can, let's say, install specific modules for different functionalities, let's say carousel, and probably just use that in your application. So node modules, all your packages, right, and everything that's needed, that's contained in the React library, you can find inside this node modules folder. Then we have the public folder. The public folder contains different things that are used in that is displayed on the browser. For example, you can see the favor icon. We know what a favor icon right is, right? A favor icon is that icon you see at it is actually the icon you see in browser, something like right. So these stuffs you can see here, like this WhatsApp icon, this search icon, the Twitter icon, all these are called favor icons. So we also have now the index.html file. Okay, there's the manifest.json. This is not very much important to us because this will be very important if you are creating what we call progressive web applications as PWAs, but that is like beyond the scope of this course, right? It's beyond the scope of this class. So our main target, the thing we're going to be looking at, is the index.html file. So this index.html file, like I told you earlier, React creates single page applications. So this index.html file is what renders your whole React application. So basically, as probably these are carries out different actions, changes different states. This particular HTML file is what renders the view, as in the view, right, depending on the state change or whatever was called, right? So as you can see here, it has a title React app. Now this particular page should not be tampered with, except you want to change something within the head tag. So for example, I can come here and change it from React app to blockchain UNN instead. We know what a title is, right? We all did HTML. The title is what is normally shown in a browser, like this rendering element React as a title. So we're going to change the title to blockchain UNN, but then it's recommended you don't touch any other thing, right? You don't touch any other thing. So there's this root here, this single div tag with an ID root. Now this div tag is what is where all your React components are rendered in. Now, if we okay, when we go forward, I'll explain something, right? So that's the only thing you need to know about. That's the thing you need to know about the index.html. That's the file that runs on the browser, the single page that renders your application component. Then we have the source folder. Now, the source folder is the folder particularly we'll be playing a lot with. So as you can see, we have a simple app.css file here. We have an app.js file. Now this app.js file, um, for this case now, renders the default React page that you would normally see when you open the browser, right? So this app.js should normally be like where you compile your components, right? So your whole applications, when you have different components, right, you could import them and create your whole user interface right within this app.js. So there's a test file here for writing unit tests. There's an index.css file. There's the index.js file. All right. So as you can see here now, the index.js file is another important file. You can see it gets the elements. So the DOM, as you can see, the DOM gets element by ID root. This is what we found earlier in our index.html, right? So this particular div that is rendered, it is gotten by this, and this is what particularly renders your React application. As you can see, this app here is the app.js. It was imported from dot/app. Dot/app is our app.js. So as you can see here, it's a function called app, and it gets rendered in your index.js. So this renders it in the div element with id root. All right, so we are going to be creating different components. And I would love us to play with components. File, you know what a gitignore file is, right? Most of us we did the GitHub classes. So a gitignore file is mostly where you put different stuffs you do not want to push to your GitHub. For example, you wouldn't want to push your node modules to GitHub as they are usually very big files and would take up a lot of space on your GitHub storage. Then you don't want to push some of all these things to your env files and the rest. All right. So we also have a package log.json. Before you understand the package log.json, we're going to explain the package.json basically contains here are all the dependencies, the scripts we can run. For example, when we want to start our application, we run npm run start to start our application on the browser. We have the build script, we have the test script, we have the eject script for different operations we want to carry out on our React application. And the package log.json basically helps to, I think it helps to lock your package. So to make sure that probably when someone is running npm install, right, it gets the particular version that was actually used to set the application up earlier to prevent bugs from, let's say, using more advanced versions than the ones which was initially used. So the package log.json is an important file. Then we also have our README, which is just a GitHub README that contains some boilerplate React blah blah blah. So you can see getting started React app, your different project, your different commands. To run our package, we'll run the command npm. To test, we can run npm test. To build, we can run npm build, and to eject, we can run npm eject. All right. So inside, like I said earlier, inside the app.js, we have a boilerplate React code. We are going to run that in the browser, and I'm going to learn how to run applications in the browser. So we're just going to head to our terminal. For then, let me confirm that you guys are still following up. So Divine Richard says, please can you increase your font size? All right, let me do that on VS Code. Um, right, Divine, is this better? I think this should be better, right, Divine? Okay, well, wait for Divine to give us a response, right? We'll just move on. So to run our React application, we're going to let's just clear our browser, our terminal, and we're going to run the command npm run start. Okay, so once this is completed, we should our development environment should get started, and we should be able to access our React application on using the address localhost 3000. So as you can see here, this is the default React boilerplate, and just so that we tamper it and be sure that that's the page running right, I'm just going to come here and I'm going to clear all this here. I'm going to clear all this here, and I'm going to just right. I'm just going to say h1 hello world, hello world. All right, and I'm going to save this. And if you come to our browser, you can see the hello world. So this particular page is actually what is being rendered on our browser. Now we talked about GSX, right, and the miracles we can do with GSX. As you can see here, this is HTML I'm writing inside JavaScript. Now this is the power of GSX, right? So I can come here and probably write something like constant name is equal to Darlington, right? I can, sorry, is equal to Darlington, right? Now I'm going to just come here and I'm just going to remove it, and I'm going to say hello name. So once we do this and we run this try, what we're going to see is hello Darlington. So as you can see, like we explained earlier, you can embed expressions inside your GSX. Now that's the beauty of GSX, right? You can write HTML in JavaScript, and you can embed JavaScript expressions in HTML. And we are going to be doing a lot of magic with this. So we also talked about how you could use functions, right? Um, let's just play around with some of these things we talked about. We talked about functions, did we? Okay, not here. That was when we were introducing GSX, right? We talked about functions. Where's that? Okay, yeah, and this is what I was referring to. You could actually embed GSX in different functions like this. So we're just going to say, we're going to just come here, right? We have a name already. We're just going to say function, simple function. Let's just call it, is it get greeting, right? Okay, get greeting. We're going to do something else. Any, all right, and let's just simply return the hit one here. All right, and we're going to return hello hello name. Sorry, yeah, hello name, yeah. All right, so we're just simply going to come here, and okay, this is going to say hello name, but it's just an example. So we're just going to call the function get greeting here, and let's try to run this on the browser and see what we get. So we get hello, but we don't get returned our name. All right, sorry about that. There's no need to pass in the name. If we're going to do that, if we're going to do this right, we're just going to simply just remove this instead, and we're going to come here and pass in Darlington, right? So if we run this, we can see hello Darlington. So that's basically about React, right, and JSX. So this is exactly how GSX works. Okay, so like I said earlier, I would need us to play around the components. We're going to be done in the next few minutes. Normally the class is actually supposed to stretch for at least 2 hours. So if we can establish components, right? Sorry, where's the yep, we're going to look at components and props. We're going to just learn about components and props, and we are going to probably end here. So in the next class, we're going to look at states and life cycle. We're going to try to understand how this works, and probably check out some stuff like use states and the others, right? So let's just head into components and props. And just to be clear, we still here? Okay, everyone says yes is better. Thanks. All right. So I would assume we are still following, right? Okay, so we are going to look into components and props, like I said. So components lets you split your UI into independent reusable pieces, and more emphasis on reusable, because that's what like makes components in React so beautiful. The ability to reuse components, right? I would explain this later when we start building it. So, and also to think about each piece in isolation. So basically you can build each pieces in isolation and just put them together. React enables you to do this efficiently. So that's what we're going to be looking at, right? So function and class components. So as you can see, I say the simplest way to define a component is to write a JavaScript function welcome props return this. Right, this function is a valid React component because you accept a single props which stands for properties. Okay, we call also component because all these are not what exactly we are looking at. We're going to be looking at function welcome right then. So before we go on, right, I'm just going to there's this extension I would want all of us to get, right? So if you're following me, I think that's called React ES6. Yeah, this extension, ES7 plus React Redux, React Native is going to help you a lot. It makes things a lot easier. So, for example, I'm going to do something. So, let's say I want to create a new component, right? Let's just clear some of the stuff we've done. Let's clear this and let's take this back to just a simple hello world. Let's take this back to a simple hello world, right? Let me confirm that's it. Yeah, hello world. So we're going to after getting that in, just search for ES7 plus React and the rest and get it installed. Once you do that, I'm going to show you something. So we are going to create a new folder. So not file. We're going to create a new folder inside our source directory. I'm going to create a new folder and we're going to call this components. Now, inside our components, we are going to create our first component, right? And this first component, I'm going to call it, let's just call it first.jsx. Now, you can either decide to name your extensions using, as in, name your files using the .js extension or the .js extension. Whatever it is you want to do, you can possibly decide to do that. It's totally optional which part you want to do. But I personally prefer using this .jsx for components and using .js um for what is called for pages, right? It's how I structure my own React application. So I structure it into components and pages. For example, I have a page with six different components. I name my pages using the .js extension, and I name my components using .js extension, .jsx extension, and we are just going to stick with that, right? Now, see the beauty of that. That extension we installed earlier, so I can do something like a array fce. So in this, I'm creating a React arrow, an arrow component, right? An arrow function. We know what an arrow function is. So it's a new syntax in initiated or introduced with ES6, right? ECMAScript 6. So if you don't understand what an arrow function is, I would advise you go check out ES6 syntaxes in JavaScript, right? So you can also decide to just do RFCE, that's creating normal functional components. They are basically the same thing, right? So, okay, let's just use normal functional components, we all know. And our name of our function is first, right? We are okay with that. All right. So, the next thing what I just want to do, right, is I will just come here and I'm going to import that. Now, this is the beauty of components, right? I can just simply come here and import my components by going into dot slash components, and I'm going to head into first. Yeah. So I'm just going to come here and I'm going to add the function first. First is a component. All right. So I'm just going to do this first. Right. Now, if I come here, I have first, right? And I reload this in the browser. Okay, since first is not defined, first is not defined. All right. Sorry, give me a minute. Let me resolve something. I think I folk. I just forgot something very important at my age. Um, minute, please. All right. Just remember what I forgot. Right, let's just go back. It's been a while since I actually wrote React stuff. It's been mostly smart contracts for the past few months. So let's just go back and sort that out. Right, can you guys still see my screen? I'm not getting any replies. Can you guys see my screen? Oh, I forgot to share my screen once again. Okay, I think, can you guys see my screen now? I'm still not getting any response. So I believe we should be able to see my screen, right? So yeah, so basically we're importing the first, that's the function first, right, from this component, and we're just declaring that function in here. So you're going to do some simple stuffs. We're going to be doing some simple stuffs. Firstly, like I said earlier, components enable us create reusable pieces, right? So I can just copy this first, and I can, let's say, multiply this in different places. And when you load this on your browser, you can see the first is repeated 5 times, but I didn't necessarily need to write the first myself, right? I didn't necessarily need to write the first myself. Okay, so the thing I want us to do with components, right, is we're going to learn how to build not just components, learn how to use what we call props. So your components do not necessarily need to be static. Your components do not necessarily need to be static. For example, if I said hello darlington, you're just going to see hello darlington repeat 5 times. You just see hello darlington repeat 5 times. But we could do something better, right? We could make this darlington of um, like a prop or an object or an expression that changes. So to do that, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what we call, we're going to pass in what we call a prop. I'm going to pass in what we call a prop. And I'm going to do this by doing this. I'm going to say name is equal to darlington. What we call a prop. Props that is short for properties, right? So I'm going to call this just say confidence. I'm going to say call this let's say Gunnar, right? And I'm just going to pass in a name here. Let's say divine. Yeah, let's say divine. All right. And I'm going to pass in my a last name here. Let's see Chisholm, right? All right. So we're going to come in here, and we are going to destructure that prop. We're going to just put in the name here, and we can replace this using the name property. So once we load this, you can see we get different names now. Hello Darlington, Hello Confidence, Hello Gunnar, Hello Divine, and Hello Chisholm. So basically what we did here was we created using the same components, we just used the same components now to create different pieces. So as you can see here, we're just reusing the first component, but instead of using a static darlington, right, we created what we call the props. We passed in what we call the props, and we did what we call destructuring. So what I did in here is called destructuring a prop, right? We did this, and after doing this, we passed in the name, and as you can see here, enabled us create these spaces. Now this can be very useful when creating a web page, right? You could probably want to build something like um okay, let's say you are trying to work on a carousel, right? You're trying to work on a carousel. You know what a carousel is? That stuff that moves from side to side. So you can actually create the carousel as a single component and change the images contained in that carousel, and that should give you the effect where you are basically using one component to render different images. That's one of the basic beauties of components. So like I said earlier, we could create different components. We could decide to create a second.jsx, second.jsx, right? Like I said, we just use the RFC to bring this out, and this has a second, right? So to add it to our React application, we can simply just go ahead over to our projects, right? And we're going to right. We're going to import second from components slash second. All right. Now, when we do this, we can just simply come in here and just call second. And once we do this, we can come back to our browser and we can see second added here. So using that, for example, the complex web page like this, you could divide this into different components. Like I said earlier, you can put this in a single component. You can put the nav by another component. You can put the body here in a different component. Put all these as components and probably just reuse them each time. So as you can see here, we could use this black stuff as a component. And each time we could probably just change the content, that's the text, whatever is inside here, we could just change this. You get, so when we want to render it here, we can add this as a different stuff. So that's one very important thing to note about components. So we'll be rounding up soon. But if you have any questions, you could probably just ask on the chat and I'll attend to them. And from next week, we'll be doing some more deeper stuffs. We're going to be doing some more deeper stuffs. All right. So I'm looking to see if there are any new stuff we've probably not covered. All right. Let's see if there are any questions. Please, what is that shortcut you just used now? Okay. So I said it's basically what I did was right. I said first of all, head into your extensions, search for ES7, ES7 plus. Search for ES7 plus. Okay. No, let's just search for React. Search for React in your extension. It's one of the first extensions that should pop up. It's called ES7 plus React Redux React Native Snippets. So once you search for that, right, just simply install that. And once you install that, each time you create a component, for example, when you create third.jsx, right, you can simply just see RFCE, and as you can see here, when you click on RFCE, and it automatically brings up what we need. So one more thing I would need us to explain with JSX before we go right is when you're writing JSX, right, there needs to be a single div in your return statement. The return statement is what contains the JSX, right? If you want to write a JavaScript, any of your JavaScript logic can go outside the return statement inside the function. So I could create functions here. I'll say create a function here. I could create a constant here. Whatever it is I want to do in JavaScript, I can do it outside the return statement. Inside the return statement, basically, is mostly we write to JSX, right? And inside that return statement, there must be a single parent div that contains every other thing in your component. So it will be, if you try creating, let's say you come here and try to create another div and you want to call this photo, as you can see here, the extension is already pointing to you that there's an error. And if you check it, you will see JSX expression must have one parent element. So it must have just one parent div. This one parent div must contain every single thing, every single JSX code you write, right? So I hope we actually got that. Does that answer your question, Musa? All right. So basically, you could just check out this later, the component and prop section on React, but it's basically like just a more broader perspective to what we just looked at. And I think we we just did most of what I was looking at us doing today, right? So, I said in our next class we're going to, because we're going to be looking at state and life cycles. We're going to be looking at how to use the use state hooks. We're going to be looking at hooks like use state hook, the use reducer, and many more hooks. We have use memo and the rest that we have in React. So that will be on Sunday. So please make sure to be available for Sunday classes. And I think we'll be calling it a wrap here. So just go back home, try to install React, try to run it on the browser, play around with it, learn new things. I'm going to be dropping a library playlist of videos in addition to the documentations that would help and would guide your study. But I think for the time being, we are going to like be calling it quits here. So before we go, if you still have any questions, you could use the live chat section, and I'll do my best to attend to it. Right, guys. I don't know if anyone still has any question before we move on. Right then, probably in the absence of questions, we'd call it a day here. So we didn't really have much person join the live stream, and I understand since today's a okay. Can you explain props again? All right. So I'm just going to share my screen again, and we're going to look at that. Right. Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys see my screen? I'm not seeing any replies. How about now? I think it took a while to come up. Okay, I think it should be visible now. All right. I haven't gotten any response yet. Is my screen probably visible now? Okay, thanks. All right. So I was explaining props earlier, right? I said props are means by which you could pass arguments from one React page to another. Prop stands for, it's short for properties, right? So we could possibly, okay, let's say we have the second page here, right? The second contains second. So let's say we wanted to do something creative. Let's pass in something else. Let's say item is equal to let's see, item is equal to, okay, let's just see monitor, right? Okay, now this here is a prop we are trying to pass in to this function second, right, contained in this component called second. So this is what is called the props, right? So short of properties is the way, like I said earlier, we pass arguments from one React page to another. So if you go into second.js, we could do different stuff. You could access that, I think, using props.name. Actually, sorry, not name. We called it what item, right? We could do is access that using props.item, and I think, okay. Or a better way, which I normally do, is like destructuring your item. So when you destructure a prop, basically you have access to this, right? You can have multiple props. You could have an item, you could have a name, and a whole lot of other stuff. You could add have a name here, which would probably call destiny. Let's just call this destiny, right? And I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to turn it into second JS, right? And I'm going to have item name, right? Just destructure the props, right? And yeah, so inside the second, right, we could say Mr. Name, Mr. Name went to the market and purchased a, then we can put the item here. And when we save this, right, and try to run it, we already have that in our app.js, right? So when we try to run that, we go into our browser, which is our browser, this, yes, localhost. We can see that, we have Mr. Destiny went to the market and purchased a monitor, where Destiny and monitor were props or arguments that we passed from. As you can see here, we passed from this React page, that's the app.js, to component that was rendered, that's the second, as you can see, you're passing the name and the item. So props are a simple way to do most of these, right? To render, you could use it to render um a what is called a dynamic view, right? Just using a single component. I don't know if that answers your question, Musa. Yeah, Musa, you there? Does that answer your question? All right, all right. Yeah, thank you, to Musa. Okay, so I think guys would actually be rounding up here. We're going to be rounding up here. Thank you so much for coming around. Thank you so much, despite probably your busy week. Thank you for making out time to come around. And like I said earlier, I would just do that now. I'll drop a playlist which you could actually go through, since 4 weeks, that's 4 Sundays, might not be enough to touch or run through everything, but that should, if you could actually take out time to go through those videos, it should help you like with learning and mastering React, and also the documentation too. So I think that would be about it. Thanks so much guys for coming around, and yeah, see you on Sunday. See you on Sunday.